Welcome to another program of Focus on Health, and do I have a treat for you? There's a young lady that's sitting to my right. We're going to hear a fantastic story. I've never done this type of program about this organization, but you're going to find out about it right after this commercial. Welcome back to Focus on Health, and what we're going to talk about today is the Peace Corps. I can remember when President John Kennedy came out with the Peace Corps, and to my right is a dynamic young lady, Grace Nagel. I'm going to have a look into this camera here on her left, tell everybody about herself. Everyone knows her mom, Susan Gallagher. She's the apple dropped from the tree, very giving heart person, just like her mom. So Grace, I want you to, first of all, look into that camera and just give everybody a history of yourself. Tell them about why you chose the Peace Corps. I want you to talk a little bit about the process so individuals who are interested can do it. And you're a good example to inspire people to give of themselves for others. So if you're looking at that camera, this is Miss Grace Nagel.
Hi.
And she is going to tell us something about the Peace Corps.
Yeah, so as Councilman Barnes said, my name is Grace Nagel. I'm a Columbus native, and I have always wanted to join the Peace Corps. I've been fascinated with languages and cultures ever since I was young. I ended up studying Arabic in undergrad at Georgetown University, and then got my master's in international affairs from Georgia Tech. And I also come from a military family, so serving my country was very important to me. And the Peace Corps represents the best of what America has to offer. And for me, the ability to combine all of those things into one experience is what really drove me to look into the Peace Corps as an option.
And tell everybody about the process, because I know a lot of our individuals, and guess what? Once she talks to you about the process of it, which I feel is important, because if any individuals would like to join the Peace Corps, she's their authority and whatever. And then we're going to get into all the good things she did when she was in Senegal and all the health-related obstacles that she was confronted with when she was a volunteer there. So just talk a little bit about the process. You went onto the computer and you found out how to do it, and it was an easy process, you said.
It's a very easy process now. If you go on to www.peacecorps.gov, which is PEACECORPS, there's a silent S in there. You can fill out an application, and the application will ask you a very basic set of questions about what you're interested in doing and where you would like to serve. Or you can be like me and say you'll go anywhere and do anything. So it was by sheer chance that I got selected to go to Senegal, but it was a very lucky chance on my part because I ended up loving the country that I served in. But the Peace Corps website has all the information you need about projects that volunteers are doing, the countries that the Peace Corps serves in, the different sectors that we work in, and is basically your one-stop shop for everything involving Peace Corps. And you can also get connected to a recruiter through the website as well. And
what, Grace, also, because I often wondered, what's the process like, Grace? I mean, if you go into a country, you don't know anything about the culture or the language, just tell them a little bit about how they get you started, how they prep you and make you culturally aware of things, and of course there's a language.
Yes.
So if we could speak about that.
Yeah. So Peace Corps volunteers serve in their country for 27 months, and that includes 3 months of basic training, where you have 10 weeks of intense cultural training, language training, and they even take you to your communities where you learn with a host family about the cultural faux pas that you need to avoid. And in order to actually swear in to become a volunteer, you have to meet a certain language level and show that you have the commitment and drive to want to continue serving for the next 24 months.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Okay, so now let us go to the next slide after the initial one. There we go. That slide right there, Grace.
So why would we want to join the Peace Corps? I explained my story, and maybe some of that resonates with you. I think that everybody wants to give back in some way, and if you're interested at all in working in international development or nonprofit experience, or you just want to travel and see the world a little bit, the Peace Corps is a great option. There's also several good benefits to joining the Peace Corps.
Okay.
You can get your student loans deferred or canceled,
Oh,
which
wow.
is a great perk.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's a huge perk.
Huge perk. You get 100% health coverage while you're overseas, which is also great. So
Yes.
anytime I got sick, which was pretty frequently, it was 100% covered. And also, if you successfully complete your service, or if you have a medical event that you have to leave early, but otherwise your service was really good, you qualify for non-competitive employment with the federal government, which means that your resume gets to the top of the pile when you apply for a job.
That's really awesome.
Exactly.
That is really awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, next slide, please. Senegal. Let's learn a little bit about Senegal, Grace.
Yeah, so Senegal is a country in West Africa. It's the westernmost part of Africa, and it's about 14 million people that live in Senegal. And out of those people, about half are under the age of 18, so it's a very young population.
That's a young population.
Very young population. The capital is Dakar, which is in a little peninsula right in the Atlantic Ocean. And there's so many different ethnic groups and languages. There's over 26 languages spoken.
Wow, that is intriguing. That is really intriguing.
And it's mostly Muslim, between 92 and 95% Muslim. There are also a Christian population there, as well as traditional animist people there.
Next slide, please. Peace Corps mission.
So when President Kennedy came up with the Peace Corps,
Yes.
he defined the mission of the Peace Corps by these three goals. So to help the people of interested countries in meeting their need for trained men and women, to help promote a better understanding of Americans on the part of the people served, and to help promote a better understanding of other peoples on the part of Americans. So if you look at that mission, only one of those goals is actually training people in the work that we have to do with them.
Right.
The other two are about cultural exchange.
Yes.
So while I'm there, Senegalese people can see what a real American looks like.
That's exactly right.
And then when I come back, the rest of the mission, for the rest of my life is to share my experience in Senegal with Americans.
And you want to know something, you can't beat that. I mean, that an exchange like that, to let other people know how we Americans are, and where they get a sense of us is extremely helpful to us as a country.
Exactly. We're the closest thing to an ambassador that a lot of people will get through the Peace Corps. And when you see, things on the news, we all know that what's on the news isn't necessarily what happens in real life.
That is exactly right. That's exactly right.
So
it's a really good experience going over to another country and whatever.
Exactly.
Okay, peace. Let's go to the next slide, please.
Yeah, so the volunteer life cycle is over 27 months, and your first part is your staging and your pre-service training. That's the first 3 months of service where you're doing that intensive language and cultural training. Then you also do community integration. For your first 3 months, you're not expected to work. Your job is to have your community know who you are and have you fit in. Because if you get over there and you're hanging around in your room all day, no one's going to want to. No one knows who you are.
Right. That's exactly right.
Your job is to go to your local weddings, talk with people at the bus stop, just to get them to know who you are.
And to know the cultural things, the mores, and the community. So this is good. Then you go, in-service training?
In-service training. So that's an intensive 2-week training, and there's also separate seminars that we have throughout the 27 months of service. But those are more of your technical training. So you learn things about different health projects and how to work around those. So in-service training is where you get a lot of your technical know-how that you will apply in your work as a volunteer.
And projects?
So those projects are things that what you were trained on in your in-service training, you go out and do in your community.
Good.
And a project might be a 1-day training on hand washing, or it could be a grant writing project on building a new health center. So projects take
very wide-ranging that you can choose from and all.
Yeah,
Okay.
so it really depends on what the needs of the community are, and also what the volunteer is able to provide for that community. And Peace Corps does a really good job of training people in all the different facets of what they're trying to do. So,
and that's a good thing.
Yeah. And then at the end, you have your project evaluation, because money's tight in the federal budget, and we want to make sure that these projects work. One
of the things that Grace and I talked about prior to us starting the show is that because money is tight, it makes sense that you do projects that are sustainable.
Exactly.
That's in other words that can be ongoing after you're gone.
Exactly. There's actually a phrase that Peace Corps volunteers say that to be a Peace Corps volunteer is to plant a tree in whose shade you will never sit.
Ooh,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
After the programs, let me know so I can write that down. That's
I'll tell that to you.
Next
Yeah.
slide, Bruce, please. All righty, what does Peace Corps Senegals do?
So Peace Corps Senegal has 4 sectors that we work in, and that is agriculture, agroforestry, community health, and economic development. And all those things are different sectors, and a volunteer will be selected to work as an agroforestry volunteer or
Okay.
a health volunteer. But that doesn't mean they're limited to working just
Just
in
in
that
that,
sector.
okay.
Because we all know that economic development is related to health outcomes.
That's exactly right. So it's crossover.
There's a lot of cross-sectoral work that goes on, and all of those sectors fall under the project goal. And the project goal is created by the Peace Corps posts in that country, working together with the local government.
Oh,
So
okay.
we're not trying to say this is what you have to do. The Senegalese government invites us to serve as volunteers, and they say we need people to work with our populations on
Good.
these issues.
Good.
And as far as the work that we do, a lot of our job is mentoring people. You can do one training, but the long-term success is if you get people to agree to do it
Right.
beyond the training.
Right.
And an example I like to give is I can go register at the gym to go work out, but if I don't go,
Guess what?
there's
Nothing
no
will change.
There's no change.
Right,
So
right.
I'm that person who helps people follow the positive behaviors that we want them to do.
Also, next slide.
So
Health projects in Senegal. Okay, this is also nutrition, malaria, water, sanitation, hygiene, and health advocacy. Let's take each one of these things here.
Sure.
Nutrition.
Yeah, nutrition is a big component of the work that we do as volunteers. Because so many of the population are young people, we want to make sure that they're getting all the nutrients required.
Right.
And Senegal doesn't suffer from hunger as much as it suffers from malnutrition.
And there's a huge difference
Very
between
huge
those.
difference.
Some people think they're synonymous, but they're not.
They're not. Hunger is if you don't have enough calories to meet your daily needs. Malnutrition is you have enough calories, but they're not coming from the right sources.
That's exactly right.
And Senegal has a diet that's heavy in oils and rice. So people are getting a lot of their calorie needs, but they're missing fruits and vegetables and proteins.
Sure.
So we work with usually pregnant or breastfeeding women and caregivers who have young children to make sure that they know how to cook and acquire nutritious foods.
Sure. Malaria.
Yeah. Malaria is one of the oldest diseases in the
Yes,
world.
indeedy.
In the Bible, it talks about people dying from malaria.
That's exactly right.
And it's one of the most preventable diseases in the
It
whole
is.
world. And Peace Corps volunteers do a lot of work with bed net repair. If you sleep under an insecticide-treated mosquito net every night, your chances of malaria are lowered dramatically. And also, malaria, the first symptoms of it are very similar to the kind that you would get with the flu or a stomach bug. So people might not go get treated for malaria
Right.
until it's very
It's
late
progressed. It's
until it's
progressive.
progressed. Exactly. So we encourage people to go get treated early.
Water, sanitation, and hygiene.
Yeah. So clean water and soap does a number on killing germs that cause the spread of disease.
Right.
And a lot of communities don't have access to running water, and they might not be able to afford soap. So we try to help remove those barriers to make that more workable for people.
And you would think that would be something basic, but it's not in a lot of countries.
It's not in a lot of countries simply because infrastructure is expensive.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. Health advocacy.
Yeah, so with the population being so young, we want to train them to be the health leaders for tomorrow.
Sure.
That's the sustainability of it. We would like to work ourselves out of a job and hopefully have the youth of Senegal take charge of their health situations.
Sure.
So we do a lot of work with community health workers who usually do in-home visits. We also train young men and women in different health topics. And we also try to incorporate men, especially elder men and men in positions of power, to be gender advocates, because a lot of what happens is In Senegal, if the elder man says this is what's going to happen, people will do it. So we try to get them on board.
And that's huge.
Yes,
And that's very
huge.
important. That's a part of a cultural thing.
Exactly.
That you have to learn.
And if you don't know that part of the culture and you're trying to do a project, it probably won't succeed.
Right, because you're just not getting the amen or the consent
You're not
of
getting,
the elders.
yeah, exactly.
Next slide, please.
Yeah.
Let's go. Let's talk now nutrition, combating malnutrition. They target pregnant women and caregivers for children under the age of 5. What was that like?
So that could involve a variety of topics. And in a lot of our trainings, we try to show complementary food groups. And we have a model that we call the complete model. And it's modeled after what Senegalese women will traditionally wear, which is a skirt, a top, and a head wrap. And we say that a complete meal is like a complete outfit. You have all the parts together.
That is so neat.
Yeah, so we have things where you need to have your energy food groups, you need to have your vitamins, and you need to have your vegetables. So we've got all the things going on together.
Awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, community gardens. And you know, Grace, this is something that is really on the bandwagon here in Columbus.
Exactly.
Speak about this. Encourage self-sufficiency in growing nutrient-dense foods.
Yeah, so Senegal is a very agricultural country. About 70% of its economy is agriculture. And you would think that would mean that everyone's got food everywhere, but that's not necessarily true. A lot of the food is sold for export. So we want to try to make people grow some of the food that they have. And even if they're in the market, they might be too poor to afford the food that they grew.
Right.
So, and it's really, really terrible, but we want to try to encourage people to grow nutrient-dense foods. So maybe things like green tomatoes or okra, very popular in Senegal, and things that can grow very well in their climate that can be used at home.
Here's the one. Now, I cheated, y'all, because I asked Grace about this. Moringa. Moringa cultivation, rich in nutrients, easy to grow and harvest. Tell us about moringa.
Yeah, so moringa is a tree that's native to India, and it's spread throughout Asia and parts of Africa, and it's traditionally used in Senegal for food. And we actually, in the picture here on the slide, shows 2 volunteers who are demonstrating the nutrient power of moringa. And you might not be able to tell in the bottom of the picture, but we have different illustrations that it has the amount of beta carotene as carrots, it has the amount of protein as milk, the amount of potassium as a banana. So it's very, very nutrient rich.
I'm looking at the bottom of this here. I was looking at the top of the picture. At the bottom of the picture, I see the carrot, I see the banana and all.
Yeah.
This is really good. And you want to know something? You teach in a manner that everyone can understand or associate with. I like what you were talking about, that you compare with the women's, what they wear, their outfits, because that's easy for them to encapsulate that idea.
We want to make it as easy as possible for people to understand and to do.
And to do. And that way they don't feel overwhelmed. They feel they learn in their own way, in their own manner.
Exactly.
Malaria, we talked, next slide please, Bruce. We talked about the malaria. 212 million people infected and 429,000 dead from malaria globally each year. That's awesome.
It's a lot of people who are dying from this very preventable disease.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and a lot of it is access to behavior change methods. So using that mosquito net, and we say in Senegal, we'd say toute la famille, toute la nuit, toute l'année. All the family, every night, all year. You have to use your mosquito net all the time if you want to help prevent malaria.
And say that again. And now this is what's the language?
This is in French, actually.
It's in French,
yeah,
okay.
But toute l'année, toute la famille, toute la nuit. And we do a lot of prevention work with the bed nets, but we also try to train people to do early care seeking for malaria signs. As we said earlier, a lot of the signs for malaria are fever, upset stomach,
just
fatigue.
Just like the flu or something.
Just like the flu. And if you go Senegal Health, the health post in Senegal will give you the treatment for free if it's detectable early. But if it's not, you might have to go to the hospital. And we try to train people the importance of going early, and that's worked really well.
And the importance of being attuned to the signs.
Exactly.
And what is the last one this year? I'm trying to...
Yeah, so PECADOM Plus. PECADOM is an acronym that stands for Prise en charge à domicile, which literally means taking control at home.
Oh, okay.
This was an initiative that was started by a Peace Corps volunteer in a region of Senegal called Kédougou in the southeast region. And the whole idea of this region, or this idea would be to train community health workers to be able to go into rural sites and bring healthcare to them.
Oh, that's great.
And they get a small stipend, and I'll tell you how successful it is. When the Pecadon Plus initiative was first started in 2008, they caught more cases of malaria in a day than the health posts in the region had in a year.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
So they're really working, and it's been so
That
successful
is
that they have
awesome.
brought it to the entire country. And
That goes to show you how I mean, that's huge.
it's huge.
That is huge.
And
So
talk
this-
about removing barriers to healthcare. You bring the healthcare to people,
that's
you know?
awesome,
Yeah.
Grace. Next slide, Bruce. Water, sanitation, and hygiene, WASH.
So a lack of running water is a big problem in spreading disease. So if you're a person who's working out in the fields all day and you've been touching your cows and your
Right.
sheep and you've been digging out in the fields and you don't have running water to wash your hands, well,
It's a problem.
it's a problem.
Right,
And
right.
people know it's a problem, but they might not know that how long you need to wash your hands for, or they might not know how to get soap and running water.
What you just brought up, Grace, is a good one. It's not only wash your hair, it's the duration of time
It's the duration
that
of
you
time.
use, because it's not merely just the soap and the water, but it's the agitation
Exactly.
that helps too. So that is a very good point.
Exactly.
Now, I'm intrigued with this now. I'm going to read this. It says,
Yes.
hand washing using soap and running water, soap making training, tippy tap construction.
Yeah. So
What is that?
a tippy tap, and I wish I had a picture of it, but it's a structure where it's two upright sticks with another stick on top, and you have a bar of soap that's hanging off of one of them, and then you have like a big jerry can, like one of those big plastic
Sure,
containers that you have with water, and you can manipulate the tippy tap so if you push down like a pedal, the container of water will flow on your hands like running water. So we teach people how to make
That
and
is-
to fix those.
That is so neat.
Yeah.
And you also teach them, like we did in the military, pit latrine.
Pit latrine construction. So one of my good friends in Peace Corps wrote a $10,000 grant to get latrines repaired and constructed in her village. They constructed about 30 pit latrines
wow.
in the middle and elementary schools.
Which is crucial.
Which is absolutely crucial
That's
because
crucial.
you can't expect a child to, every time they need to go to the bathroom, to run home.
Right.
So children are missing school because they didn't have proper bathrooms.
That's all. That's
Yeah.
Okay, what we're going to do, we're going to take a break. I know this is really interesting. It's intriguing for me. And this young lady right here is just off the chain awesome. We're going to come back right after this next commercial.
I am a teenager.
I am online.
I enjoy sharing thoughts.
Music.
Videos.
Ideas. Information.
I will not
I will not be a victim to threats.
to stalking,
To soliciting.
to predators.
I will be responsible.
I will be careful.
I will be honest.
I will be smarter. I would get my parents involved.
I will protect myself.
I will be safe.
I am a teenager.
And I
And I
Will not.
be bullied.
I present to you Algebra 2, Foreign Languages, and finally, Biology. Who among you will step up to their challenge?
Me.
Yeah, I'll do it. Me too. Sign me up.
Take on the tough classes now. You need them to prepare for college.
Man, I wish the city would fix these darn potholes. Someone needs to report this.
Has this ever happened to you and you didn't know who to call? It's simple. Dial 311 or 706-653-4000. Columbus 311 Citizen Service Center. Our goal is to provide complete, accurate, and timely information to citizens and employees regarding complaints, inquiries, and requests for information. Columbus 311 Citizen Service Center, your direct link to city service.
Welcome back to Focus on Health. Miss Grace Nagel, fantastic young person with her experience in the Peace Corps in Senegal. And let me just tell you, she's going to make a revelation at the end of the show that's going to maybe get a lot of y'all interested. Okay, we're going to talk now, Grace, about health advocacy.
Right. So health advocacy, what does that mean? Health advocacy is that sustainability portion where we try to make sure that people are equipped with the tools and the know-how to change their communities.
Right.
Like I said, we're trying to work ourselves out of a job. And we do a lot of work with different types of people. And some of them are community health workers. So you might think that some of these things don't really relate to health work, but things like better business practices are crucial. Stockpiling medication is a big problem in
yes.
health posts
Right.
because people aren't recording when someone comes in and gets a prescription. So we try to help teach people better record keeping practices. And even things like customer service skills. I'm sure we've all been to a doctor or a healthcare provider where they were not very pleasant to be with.
It kind of turns you off.
Kind of turns you off, and you
Right.
don't want to be with that kind of person.
Right,
so
right.
we try to help people make it easiher and be more friendly.
Which
for
is
people.
very important.
Very important.
Youth.
So we do a lot of work with both young men and young women. And we do a lot of somewhat sensitive work, including menstrual health and reproductive health.
Right.
We tend to focus more
And that's,
on the
and that's
menstrual
crucial.
health.
And that's crucial.
Yes.
That's an area that's extremely crucial.
Yes. So a little statistic, most of the population of Senegal lives on $1.50 a day.
Ooh.
And a packet of menstrual supplies might cost someone $1. And that is
That's-
prohibitive. Yeah.
Yes, that's prohibitive.
Yeah.
Financially prohibitive.
Yeah, so you're left with the choice of you might be a girl and you might not go to school that day because you can't afford your
Right.
menstrual supplies.
Menstrual supplies, right.
So we try to work on teaching young girls how to make reusable menstrual pads out
That's
of cloth
awesome.
and towels.
But you want to know something? That in and of itself is huge.
It's huge, yeah.
And maybe a lot of that, they don't have the wherewithal or the knowledge that something like that is feasible to do.
Exactly. And once we show them how easy it is,
Oh,
we have a lot of girls who go back and teach their friends exactly what
But
to
you
do.
want to know that has to be a huge change maker in their lives.
I think it is.
No, really, I mean, it has
Yeah.
to be a huge change maker in their lives. Not being able to go to school on those days, a big break and whatever, and then when you think something like that is generation to generation, this is a huge thing to teach
It's
them.
huge. It's very huge. And we also try to work with teaching boys because it's just as important because they're going to be husbands and fathers one day.
Right, exactly right, exactly right. And so, besides that, you've got men as partners.
Yeah.
Making men stakeholders in community health, combating gender-based violence. Would you speak on that?
Sure. So Men as Partners is a big global Peace Corps initiative, but one that we take very seriously in Senegal. Men make a lot of the decisions, and men hold a lot of power in Senegal. So if you're trying to make all these changes, it's great to have the women on board, but if the men aren't on board, you're kind of stuck.
Right.
So we do a lot of work with trying to talk to the local imam at the mosque, or talking to the village or quarter elder or village chief, and try to say why that's important. And it's not always successful. We have a lot of people who are not ready for that kind of
Right.
talk.
And I could imagine also, Grace, that you have to learn to be very diplomatic.
You do. You have to be
I mean,
very diplomatic.
if you reach an obstacle or someone's hesitant, you have to learn to be very diplomatic and accepting what for them would be a reason.
Exactly.
You understand? And not being
Exactly.
so forceful that you alienate yourself from them.
Yeah, for me, I see that as an opportunity to find another solution.
Right.
It takes that creative problem solving to kind of work around those problems.
Right.
And fortunately, though, we do have a lot of young men. I actually, in one of my reproductive health classes, had a bunch of young men who were able to describe the phases of the menstrual cycle. And
Are you serious?
I'm serious.
Now that's a good teachable.
It's a very excellent teachable moment.
That is a teachable moment.
Yeah.
No, really, but
yeah.
when you think about that, that is a very teachable moment for men.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
And so something like that is, again, huge, really.
Yeah, and we
Really.
also try to work with the combating gender-based violence. I'm one person, and I'm not in a position to criticize society as a whole.
Right.
You know.
That's exactly right.
But what I try to do is I try to sort of play devil's advocate a little bit. So we might have something where the idea of consent in sexual relationships
Right,
comes up.
right.
And Westerners have a very different idea of consent
Sure.
than people in Africa
right,
do.
Right.
And not all throughout Africa, but in Senegal in particular. And we tried to present, okay, this is what happens in Senegal, but this is what happens in the West, and
Right.
this is why we think this is important.
Sure, sure.
And maybe we don't agree at the end of the day, but they're exposed to a
But
new
bingo, I
idea.
was just getting ready to say, but they are at least exposed to another idea, another
Exactly.
concept, and
Exactly.
whatever. And whenever you get into something like that and you dialogue, it's always a win, regardless of whether they can. It's food for thought, and it puts a germ of an idea in someone's head.
Exactly.
Next slide, Bruce. If you want to get involved, this is all the information that Susan has on this slide. For anyone who wants to get involved in
Yeah.
off camera, this is what Grace says. She says, you're never too.
You're never too old to join the Peace Corps. And I'm serious. There is no upper age limit to join the Peace Corps. All you have to be 18 or older, and you typically have to have a college degree of some kind. But if you're healthy enough to pass the medical clearance to go to a different country, you can join the Peace Corps.
I'm going to go talk to Mrs. Barnes now. There might be something in the next phase of our lives.
And that also brings up another point. Married couples can serve together.
Oh, are you serious? I
Yes.
was just saying, I was serious about and talking with Mike, but maybe going myself for a while or whatever, but if married couples can go?
And actually unmarried couples too. And the Peace Corps is very inclusive. So married couples, if you're not married, you need to have a letter notarizing that you've been in a relationship for
Sure.
at least a year, and that you're agreeing to take on this adventure together.
Which I feel is fantastic.
And also, for LGBTQ couples, the Peace Corps also accepts it, but it just depends on the country. Some countries are okay, and some
right,
are not.
Right. But you want to know something? I think that's awesome, because I feel, Grace, that if individuals, if anyone wants to give of themselves, their talents and time, I think they should be allowed to do it.
I agree. And I think the Peace Corps wants to represent all of America.
That's exactly right.
And I'll say, in terms of geographic diversity, the Southeast is very underrepresented. We have a lot of people from the Northeast and from the Pacific Northwest. The Southeast, we need a lot of people.
We got to do something about that. We really got to do something about. So now, Susan, could you just, again, here's all the information. It says get involved, www.peacecorps.gov.
The second link is my blog.
This is Grace's blog. When I get a chance, I'm going to help my granddaughter put it into my little thing. www.graceinsenegal.wordpress.com. Follow a Peace Corps volunteers blog or so. They're going to show you some of y'all how ignorant I may be of social media. So I can go on there and I can follow some of the things that you did on this. You
can do, as my mom likes to say, do a Google. You can look up any kind of, if you're interested, say, in serving in Peace Corps in Cambodia, you can look up and say Peace Corps volunteer blogs Cambodia, and something will pop up.
That's awesome. Then it says act locally in Columbus. Donate. This is awesome. Donate toiletries, clothing, and menstrual supplies to a homeless or domestic violence shelter. That is awesome. I just want to say that I cannot wait to get on the phone to call your mama and let your mama know that the apple didn't fall from the tree. What a marvelous guest, Grace, that you've been. This has been awesome.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me.
No. Your mama's been talking about you for the longest time, and I said I'd have to have you on the show. And trust me, your mama never. When can she's going to be? One time you had a vacation. Can you get her in with the vacation? But I had scheduling problems. So, this has been an awesome show. It's been a show about giving up your time and your talents. And as we always know, the good Lord doesn't really care about your ability, it's your availability. And so this is what this young lady has demonstrated. And so I'm just so happy having you on the show.
Thank you.
And until next time, as I always say, please be good and kind to yourself because God loves you.